New Ted Lasso, a science fiction pick, and more of a good thing. This is TV Plus Talk on MacVoices. Welcome to TV Plus Talk. I'm Chuck Joyner. She is.
I'm Charlotte Henry. Hello again, Chuck.
How are you, Charlotte? Great to see you.
All the better for talking TV Plus with you.
Exactly. So, do you think we should tell them about our announcement now, or should we save it for the end of the show?
Oh, no, I'd like people to keep hanging on. We've got a lot to talk about. Also, a good bit of context is that we basically created the show so we could just sit about and chat every few weeks. So, we don't want to admit that, but, this is why we did the show. So that's why we're all good hanging out here. But we have big news, don't we, to kick off with from Apple TV Plus land.
We do, and I admit when I saw this, I'm kind of back and forth because it's nothing definite, but it definitely is. It definitely is positive, and that is I'll let you break it since you brought it up.
Okay, so Deadline have reported exclusively that that Ted Lasso is heading towards a green light for season 4. 3 of the key cast members have been picked up and are ready to go. They are Hannah Waddingham, who obviously plays Rebecca Walton, Brett Goldstein, who plays Roy Kent, and Jeremy Swift, who plays Leslie Higgins, who's the director of football operations. You will notice one name that is not in that list, and we will come to that in a minute. So there's a few things here. It is hugely popular. It's basically the biggest hit Apple TV Plus have had before or since. Nothing has beaten it since, really. Severance was hugely but nothing has been as popular, has it?
No, I mean and we've talked about it. Everyone's talked about how Ted Lasso came along at exactly the right time when people needed it, as well as it being just a great show, regardless.
And I'm really pleased you mentioned that because that gives some good context for my take on this. So, what's your take then? I'm just thinking, I'm going to hold fire.
Okay, all right. Listen, I thoroughly enjoyed Ted Lasso. I was a little bit of a latecomer to it because all the promotions and everything it just wasn't the kind of show that I would usually gravitate toward, pandemic or not. So for me, I took the pandemic completely out of the equation, and it's just like, okay, if maybe I'll get around to it. Well, there was so much buzz around it that I did dive in, and eventually, after I dove in, I really, really loved it. I don't feel like it had, maybe for me, the appeal wasn't the emotional appeal that some people had it, but it was a terrific comedy. The characters are just quirky enough to be really enjoyable without being completely unbelievable. Maybe only partially unbelievable. And I enjoyed every season. There were some episodes.
You've enjoyed every season.
I enjoyed every season. There were some storylines that, maybe weren't as good as others, but I can't say there was anything that ever really turned me off or said, gee, I wish they hadn't done that. It was just like any other episodic show. Some are absolutely perfect and others are not so much. So that was my take on it. And so I am delighted to see another season in the works of some kind. And I'll go this far and then I'll let you take it. But when the last season shut down, there was all kind of discussion. Will there be another season? Will there be a spinoff? And so, to your point, a character has not been secured yet, or an actor has not been secured yet. So it leaves sort of the gate swinging. Would this be a continuation, or would it be a spinoff? Frankly, with the 3 characters that have signed on, I will watch it because even if it is a spinoff, I feel like it has a lot of chance of being something that I will enjoy. That's my take. What's yours?
I really enjoyed hearing that. My take has got a few bits of context that I should give. First of all, I interviewed Bill Lawrence in my previous role at the Mac Observer and was the journalist that broke that it had been written as a 3-season arc. Everyone came to that at the beginning of season 3, but I'd known that from season 1 and published it in an article. So I'm deeply resentful if they've changed what they've told me. So there's one bit of context. The second bit of context is I loved season 1. I'm really, I think I probably binge watched it. I really enjoyed season 1. Really did not enjoy season 2. Thought season 2, it took itself far too seriously. And it only redeemed itself towards the end of season 3. And I think they ended season 3 in exactly the right way. I sent you the clip of the real life goal that I think, and the real life football match that I think the end of season 3 was meant to be kind of build on. Sorry, I'm not doing spoiler alerts for Ted Lasso. People watching this show or listening to the show haven't watched Ted Lasso. Obviously, it ends. You think that Richmond have won the title. They haven't, because in the other game, a goal has been scored right at the end, and it's basically replicating the Sergio Aguero Man City, Man United moment. I thought it was a really lovely way to end it. You see Ted going back home. Really, having not loved a decent chunk of it, I thought they ended it really well. And now we get to the crucial bit, which you were hinting at. The name we have not heard being in this story is Jason Sudeikis, who originally created the character in that NBC advert, who is a co-creator of the show. He's one of the executive producers, and, along with Brendan Hunt, who is Coach Beard, and so on. There's some of the technicalities of this. So the 3 actors we named who are in the story as having signed up are all members of the UK Actors Union Equity. So the deal for those 3 looks to be done via that union. Whereas the others, Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt, are, as I read this article, part of SAG-AFTRA, the American union. And that might also include Keely Jones, which is played by Juno Temple. So even though Juno Temple is British, my reading is that she's part of SAG-AFTRA, not Equity. So they're obviously going to have to do some kind of union negotiation over in the US as well, which is kind of interesting given all the actor strikes and everything not that far in the distance. Another thing that jumped out to me is Phil Dunster, who plays Jamie Tart, one of the really big characters in the show, doesn't seem to have been picked up at all. He's in a couple of things as well. So that's interesting that doesn't seem to be a mainstay of whatever this show is. I kind of think we might be heading towards a spin-off, not season 4. The story does say season 4, and it's written by a really good journalist, so I don't want to disagree too much with what's actually reported. But my instinct says spin-off, not 4th season. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm not sure I have a take, but this is why I love having these conversations with you, because you are much more immersed in this world. And I've completely overlooked or just wasn't reading the right articles that had anything to do with the actors guilds or the actors unions, and so had no idea. I mean, and as someone who is not in that world, other than obviously, how do you not hear about the SAG-AFTRA strike?
Right, exactly. No, nor am I particularly, but it did jump out at me when I read the deadline piece.
Right. I mean, I tend to think of, well, an actor's an actor, and if they're based in Kathmandu, who cares? They can do whatever if they get an offer, they can go wherever they want. And there is a lot of, based on what you said, there's a lot of backstory and action that has to take place before any of these things occur. So that makes me wonder a little more, as you said, about the possibility of just a spinoff. Just a spinoff. Sorry, I did not mean to characterize it as any lower tier.
Yeah.
Because again, the characters that were created by these actors and by these writers are so good. They end up you care about them, you enjoy their interactions. It's just
I'm nodding along vociferously.
Yeah, and I'm
rigorously.
And I'm still shocked in some ways that because it's just usually not the kind of show that I am attracted to. And it sort of brings up as a sidebar on this. Mythic Quest is another one that I had the same reaction to. I watched it because actually Ken Ray was the one that really got me to try to watch it, and once I did, I loved it. So sometimes it's good.
Best thing on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to break out of your your zone where you feel comfortable or where you think you're going to enjoy a show. And both of those shows turned me from being like, all right, I'll watch an episode or two just to pacify my friends, to being big fans of both shows.
Mm. There's a cut. Let's talk. We've got to talk about Jason Sudeikis because obviously the whole thing is built around him. He created the character in that original NBC advert, which, as I always have to point out, features the team I support, Tottenham Hotspur. He's there. That's very important to know in that original NBC. And Ted Lasso is Jason Sudeikis. Jason Sudeikis is Ted Lasso, right? I don't know how you can have a show unless Jason Sudeikis is fully in. And remember, the show ends with him leaving the United Kingdom to go back to his family, right?
Right.
I don't see how a show called Ted Lasso can exist. I think you could definitely have a spin-off about what happens next at Richmond. I think you can do that because of the things that were hinted at the end in that final sequence. I don't know it can be called Ted Lasso.
I agree. I mean, I agree. If the star character is not there, you really can't. Unless and then he becomes a character. He does cameo appearances of some kind, and then that doesn't work. So I can think of a couple storylines that would work for a spinoff, unless they just took it in a complete left-hand turn and said, we're going to do something completely different with these characters. But I almost feel like the only bad outcome of this article and what we're hearing would be if nothing happened. I feel like anything that comes to light, I'm going to watch, and I feel like the odds are in my favor that I will enjoy.
Yes, I would like to watch it and enjoy it, so long as they don't take themselves too seriously. There's another name I've just realised is not mentioned at all in this article, which is Nit Mohammed, who plays Nate. Now, of course, we could have a storyline, and the writers call me if you want to commission this. We could obviously have the storyline where Nate returns to manage Richmond. And that could be one version of the spin-off. You could also have a thing called Ted Lasso where Ted is back in the US and Richmond carries on. But I think that would lose a lot of the power of what... But the truth is, I am pleased that they ended it after 3 seasons. I thought that was a really brave, bold decision to end your most popular thing, to end it not perfectly, but really nicely, all tied up well. I think it would be a real shame if they insisted on if they didn't have the courage of their convictions to walk away again. I can see a spin-off being good. I can see some of the other characters who are not Ted are strong enough that you could build a show around them. I do think that is possible. And we've heard in different interviews, I'm sure I've read and seen interviews where the people in the show kind of talk that they're not killing the Ted Lasso universe entirely, but they're not doing that show anymore. I always thought we were going to have either Christmas specials or a movie. But a spin-off is another, of course it's a possibility. And of course season 4 is, there might be so much money floating around that it's too much to say no to. It's entirely possible. But anyway, I always assumed it would be a spin-off or one-off things.
Yeah, and for the folks who are watching us on video, I apologize because when you mentioned Nate, I think I winced a little bit because I feel like he was, and taking nothing away from the actor, but just the character himself was so. I don't feel like that's a strong enough character to bring back as a main focus. And if he does come back as the coach, okay,
controversial.
I will reserve judgment to see what happens. But that feels like that storyline might prove a little more challenging, at least for me, my assumptions going in.
Go on then. What do you want to happen to AFC Richmond? What were your desired storylines?
Oh, I don't have to. I mean, frankly, in some ways, Nate could do it, but then it would turn negative. But if you brought in a completely different kind of coach that was maybe a bit more hard boiled, and try the conflicts there of trying to either get him to soften up or get the rest of the crew to harden up, that could be compelling. But I'm not sure.
And of course,
compelling, but not necessarily
Roy Kent could do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Now that could be, that could be just a flat out riot.
Anyway, we'll wait and see. We're obviously going to have to keep covering this, aren't we, Chuck? Because it's the biggest Apple TV Plus show.
Yeah, but I'm not going to let you get away. You just forced me into what I wanted to see have happen to Richmond. How about you?
Honestly, I don't think they should return to the universe. I think they should have wrapped it up very nicely. If they are going to, I would kind of like to see a movie a year on where it's kind of everyone's reflecting. Maybe I quite like the idea of Roy Kent coming back as the manager and we see it from there. I don't quite know how it's going to work. We saw at the end them trying to build the women's team at Richmond, all of that stuff. There are angles that it could go down. I think it probably would have to have one of the mainstay characters, either Coach Beard or Roy Kent, managing the team, though. I don't think you can go back to the beginning of like having another unknown manager trying to win over the team.
Okay.
I think that would be too repetitive.
Okay. That's interesting perspective. Okay. Well,
you say that when you think I'm wrong. I love it.
No. I don't think you're wrong. But somewhere there has to be that because look, if you look back at how it happened the first time, there was not a conflict, but a challenge to understand each other, especially with the two different cultures. That
was the whole story,
the U.S. culture and the English culture. So, could you replicate that, but maybe not have it be US, UK, have it be something else UK? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying I think that might be quite repetitive.
Unless you had someone that was just so radically different than Ted Lasso, then it could come off as a different show.
Yeah, maybe. It'd be really interesting to see what they do. The only part of me that is like wants them to do it is just because I'm intrigued how they would do it.
Agreed. I hope we see it. I really do. In whatever version.
Yeah. And to emphasize, I was right about the 3-season arc. Thank you.
I'm not going to argue the point.
My reporting was correct. That's all I can say.
So the other thing that we had a couple other things. So you notice how I'm just glossing over that. I'm giving Charlotte the last word. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I'm way behind. I've got a watch list as long as your arm, and I just don't watch that much TV. But I did recently finish off Dark Matter, and it was spectacular. And I finished it with about a week before they announced that it's getting a second season. And I was, at the end of the first season, as I finished watching it, it was one of those rare instances where they shut the door on the story and it could easily have stopped right there, or it could easily have gone on. And that's a true art from a writer's perspective, to be able to do that, to tie things up and yet leave an opening that is not a cliffhanger or is not just so glaringly obvious. And so I love Dark Matter. I'm extremely excited that they decided to do another season. Charlotte, sort of like you, though, I get concerned because, man, the first one was so good. I just hope the second one lives up to it. So I just like Ted Lasso, I hope it lives up to it.
Yeah, it's always the risk, isn't it? What was it that made you love the show so much? Because first of all, you're a big sci-fi fan, so for you to pick out a particular sci-fi show tells me that there's something seriously good about it. Two, and there's a lot of good sci-fi on Apple TV Plus. So for it to be even ahead of the shows you've already talked about here that you've enjoyed tells me something. But what was it that you particularly liked?
I like, first of all, I don't mind saying I like a show that just doesn't spoon feed me everything, that makes me pay attention. It's a show that doesn't let me do the laundry while I'm trying to watch it on my iPad. That insists that I pay attention to it or I will be completely lost. It grabs you right out of the gate and you don't know exactly what's going on, and that just continues. And once you do figure out what's going on, then the story continues, but it continues in a very compelling fashion and takes some twists and turns. And you'll notice I'm trying desperately to avoid spoilers because I don't.
Yes, I think that's fair on this show.
It's and it would be so difficult, I'm afraid, to spoil things, except to say that you really do have to pay attention to it. Somewhat in that regard, that's why I've enjoyed Foundation so much on Apple TV Plus. It's not a series that you can watch lightly. You really can't turn away because it's too dense and it's too intense if you're going to follow the story and enjoy it. So
that's fascinating.
That's for me.
As I say, you're a big sci-fi fan and you're a big Apple TV Plus sci-fi fan. You and I have discussed before, and people should go jump back to the episodes. We'd love you to listen back because we had a whole discussion about why Apple has carved out such a niche in sci-fi, and I really think it has. And listening to this show, you talk about dark matter makes me, re-emphasizes that for me. Why is there stuff that makes it stand out above and beyond the other Apple TV Plus sci-fi?
No, I don't think so. But I think I think there's some similar characteristics here, that they aren't just sticking somebody on a spaceship and trying to tell a story. That they're trying to pick really good sci-fi. And there's some other sci-fi out there that on some of the other networks that is really good, that would fit into this same category of not spoon feeding me. And I'm afraid that if I give an example of spoon feeding, that I will offend someone. And so even if I would go to another genre and give an example of spoon feeding, I will offend someone. So I'm not going to do that. But
go on, be bold.
No, because I don't need hate mail.
See how I like getting you into trouble, but resist it when you try and do it to me.
Yeah. So, but again, I think though that this to me speaks of the whole Apple TV Plus philosophy, right back to when it was announced, and Tim Cook said, "We want to tell great stories." So many of the sci-fi stories anyway have been great. So many of the comedies have been generally funny, but also they are great stories. I know you're a huge fan of Shrinking, and Shrinking is coming back.
Yes.
I know we have another favorite.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, there's another show that you're dying for that it's not going to steal your thunder of announcing its return in just a few days as we record this.
Ah, yes.
But that's it. If you look at the quality of Apple TV Plus, it's not. Boy, okay. So I am going to get in trouble. Here you go, Charlotte. You wanted it, you got it. It's not dumbing everything down. It is not dumbing everything down like so many of the network TV comedies and even some of the non-network TV shows. It makes you think, it makes you speculate. That to me, I thoroughly enjoy because it challenges me, even, maybe not in a necessarily intellectual way, but just in how to follow the story or how to make sense of what's happening kind of way.
I mean, a great example of that for me, and it's an example I use a lot when we talk about Apple TV Plus, and it is one of the comedies, not one of the sci-fi shows, is the COVID episode of Mythic Quest, which I think was the best bit of TV going that depicted the pandemic. I thought it was beautifully done, and I mean that word deliberately and sincerely. And that showed exactly what you're talking about. It wasn't straightforward. It wasn't spoon feeding. Took a couple of different turns. It was complicated, and it was really neatly done. And I guess this is all why it all comes back to people keep calling Apple TV Plus the streaming HBO, don't they?
Yeah, and And I'd like to think that there's in the societies we have today on both sides of the Atlantic, that there is a place for an HBO style quality streaming service or quality production house or whatever you want to consider it, that there is still a place for this kind of entertainment and not the dumbed down stuff we get from so many of the different channels.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the great intellectual mind you are, and I thoroughly approve of low culture and dumbed down TV. But I think you're absolutely right about how you describe the Apple TV Plus content. We don't have a date, I assume, for the next season of Dark Matter. We just know it's happening, right?
That's the last I saw. Yeah, I didn't see a date.
Well, maybe I'll have to dive into that one. The show you referenced before that I'm very excited about is season 3 of Slow Horses. I need to catch up with season 2, I confess. I absolutely flew through season 1, which I loved. I think I'm going to give a binge watch to season 2 because it's coming out. This is really nice. Apple have done this for just before my birthday. My birthday's on the 5th of September. The next Slow Horses is coming out on the 4th of September. So we've got a bit of binge watching to do, but given the quality of the show, I think we can all really look forward to it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It is another, it's not in the sci-fi genre, but it is absolutely another one of those quality shows that grabs you and doesn't spoon feed you. And that is from coming from me, that's about the highest praise I can give it.
Yeah. Nicely based in London as well, which is obviously very good indeed. For those that don't know, it's about a team of supposedly useless MI5 agents. Their little team is led by Jackson Lamb, who's brilliantly played by Gary Oldman. If you've avoided it so far, definitely watch. It's brilliant. You'll enjoy it.
Agreed.
Couple of others before we wrap up, Chuck. I don't know if these are going to be shows for us, but worth shouting out. We've got season 2 of Bad Sisters on the way. That's coming on the 13th of November. That show is about, it follows a set of sisters called the Garvey sisters. One of their husbands had a quote unquote accidental death, and it sort of follows the family then, following the, as I say, accidental death of Grace's abusive husband. So we've got some of that to look forward to, and you've got some time to catch up with it as well. It's 13th of November. That's coming out. And just before you and I hit record, Chuck, a trailer for a show called La Maison was released by Apple TV Plus. It's a kind of high drama. It's about a French fashion empire, which should be intriguing as well. So there we go. There's a few things are never slow on Apple TV Plus now, are they? Long gone are the days where people say there's nothing on there.
I'd like to think so. And again, I thank you for giving us a quick update, because you're right. A couple of those probably aren't going to fit they're not going to go on my watch list right away. Somebody else is going to have to convince me to get there. But we need to get more information out about what is coming and what is playing and what is available on Apple TV Plus, because there's now so much good quality content that if you haven't already tried it, if you haven't consumed it, you really go back and at least give it a try, and stay away from the spoon feeding that other places give you, and dig into some of these shows.
Well, that is an almost beautifully planned link to our final little thing we want to say, which is that because there is so much on Apple TV Plus and there are so many things to discuss, and to be honest, because we've so appreciated all of you guys watching, listening, getting involved in the show, we're going to do it a little bit more regularly, aren't we, Chuck?
That's the plan. We're going to try to bring you at least 2 TV Plus Talk episodes a month. Charlotte and I've talked about it. We'd love to say, yes, every other Wednesday it's going to be this, and that's just not realistic with both of our schedules, our work schedules and all, but we are going to promise you more TV Plus Talk, because we think that it's fun for us, and based on the feedback we've gotten from you, it's fun for you as well. So thank you so much for supporting us on this idea that is a show within 2 different properties. It's weird. You can't really subscribe to TV Plus Talk directly. You either have to follow Charlotte's show or my show and get the episodes, but we really appreciate all the support.
And you really should be following both anyway, because we do loads of different things. And if you like this show, you're probably going to like both of our shows, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, you will come away
So,
better educated.
If you listen to your show, yes. And of course, that basically means from September, it's going to be fortnightly-ish. So keep tuned, keep checking those feeds and your YouTube subscriptions. Make sure you've got both of our podcast feeds and YouTube channels. You're subscribed and following both of those. And then you won't miss anything because, as Chuck so neatly pointed out just before, there's so much going on in Apple TV Plus land that we don't want to have to wait 3 weeks to talk about a big story. We want to be able to dive right in much quicker. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And we're really excited about it.
Charlotte, where can folks find you? We referred to your other show, your other property. So let's start with that. Where can folks find you?
Yeah, please head over to theaddition.net. That's where I blog, publish newsletters, post podcast episodes, and so on. So if you head over there, you'll find everything from me. And across social media, Threads, Blue Sky, even sometimes X, I'm at Charlotte A. Henry.
You can find me at MacVoices.com. That's where I talk to lots of interesting people with a tech focus, and a more Apple focus. And of course, we have a couple other things going as well. But and we'd have a live show Tuesday nights on YouTube. You're welcome to join that. If you're in the US, it's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you're in the UK, it's probably a little late. Sorry about that.
It's bedtime.
Yeah, but you won't miss out because those shows end up in our feeds as well. So come and join us. Charlotte?
And you did actually let me on MacVoices once, though.
And Charlotte showed up. You just showed up to discuss something a little bit not Apple TV Plus.
But Apple-ish, yeah. We discussed the introduction of the use of iPhones in the English Premier League to judge offsides and use in VAR. So that was a really fun conversation, and Chuck always has great guests, so you should check that out.
So we will see you again and a little more often in the future next time on TV Plus Talk. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you MacVoices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.